Hello, Grace Community Church. We are in February 24th's reading. We're looking at Leviticus chapter 23, and we're going to about halfway in Leviticus 25. Now, in this section, there are so many wonderful things we can hold on to as Christians. And the first thing we notice in this reading is that God outlines several festivals for joyous celebration for the Israelites. So we read a whole bunch of laws, and sometimes when you read a bunch of laws, you can be like, oh man, it must have been really hard to be Jewish, must be really hard to be an Israelite. Well, we also see that there's not just law, there's also joy. And that's what God has for us. He doesn't just have law, he has joy as well. And he says, Israel, you guys have to be party animals for weeks out of the year to celebrate all that I have done for you. And so Israel gets to celebrate. There is not just law without joy. There is both together. And we see that as Christians too. We don't just have to follow Jesus and the things that he tells us. We also get joy. We also get his love. We also get relationship with him. There is so much to celebrate, even though there are some boundaries that God lays out for us as Christians as well. The next thing I want to highlight is this section in Leviticus 24 where it talks about an example of just punishment. Now, in this section, there's a man who's a son of an Israelite female and an Egyptian man, but they are in the camp together. And he picks a fight with an Israelite man, and he curses Yahweh. And it says, taking the blaspheming the name of the Lord. Now, we can look at this and say, okay, how is this just punishment? He gets put to death for cursing the name of God. Well, here's what happens in our lives. When we are claiming to be a Christian, when we're claiming to follow God, yet we aren't living for Christ, our lives aren't matching what we're saying, that is a way of taking the name of the Lord in vain. And sometimes can be considered blaspheming the Lord. It's not just saying certain things, but it's also, does my heart match what I'm claiming to believe? And so here we see someone is claiming to be a part of the Israelite community, but then curses the name of God. And so what that does is it communicates to us that God does not take this lightly. He does not take his name being used and abused for our own purposes. He does not like that. And so this man had to be put to death for his sin against God, blaspheming the name of the Lord, wanting to be a part of the community, yet cursing the God who saved them. That is, in effect, what it means to take the name of the Lord God in vain. Now, some of us think that it's just saying, oh my God. See, I can't even say that because I was raised thinking that is taking the name of the Lord God in vain. And certainly it is. If we're not talking about God, we shouldn't be saying his name. But also, taking the name of the Lord in vain means we're claiming to be Christian, yet our lives do not match. And we see here that is very serious offense to God. We need to make sure that our lives align with what we are claiming to believe. Now, this next part that is extremely important is the Sabbath year. So it says every 7 years, every seventh year, the land needs to have a Sabbath. Now, that is both a good idea agriculturally, because if you continuously bleed a land dry of its nutrients, then you're not going to be able to have more crops. So it's a good practice agriculturally. Now, in our society, we figured out a way to not have to let the land rest. We use different crops in different fields, and that is means that we're not really a Christian nation. We're not seeking to follow what God has for us. But the concept is this, that God really takes Sabbath seriously. This is not the only place, right? We've read honor my Sabbath day. We've read that so many times over the past few months that I think we recognize the pattern that God has for us. We need to rest on the seventh day, and we also need to make sure that we're not abusing creation in the way that God has intended it to be used. And unfortunately, our society, our world has been abusing our world for our own gain. and we're seeing the effects of that. But the last thing that I want us to see is this year of Jubilee in Exodus 25, verse 8 through 23. Now, this is exciting for me to look at, because in the year of Jubilee, everybody, every slave, every property that you've owned, it gets released back to the owner. And we see at the end here, it says, the land must never be sold on a permanent basis, for the land belongs to me. You are only foreigners and tenant farmers working for me. Now, that is an incredible reality check we need to have. Because oftentimes we want to accumulate, but what God is saying, you are actually stewards of what the land is. You're stewards of your home, you're stewards of your money, you're stewards of all these things. Are you stewarding it with the intention of justice in releasing slaves and releasing people from their debts? Is that how you're stewarding? Or are you stewarding it in the way the world would want you to steward it, which is accumulate and keep for yourself? God is saying that is not how we are supposed to live. Now, this is also very important, because in Isaiah 61, Isaiah prophesies about the year of the Lord's favor, which draws from this Jubilee passage. And guess who quotes from Isaiah 61? Jesus, when he proclaims in Nazareth that he is the fulfillment of the servant who brings the year of Jubilee, the year of the Lord's favor. And so, in essence, what we see in Jesus is he is freeing the captives. He is providing food and clothing and forgiveness for those who are in debt, for those who don't have who have sold themselves to the enemy. Jesus is the fulfillment, the ultimate Jubilee. And man, I could go on for days and days about this, but that's the main thing I want you to hold on to, is that Jesus is the ultimate fulfillment of Jubilee. But in Jubilee, we also see a principle for how we should live, to steward in a way that brings freedom, that brings healing, that provides for the needs of our community and for those who are in need around us. Are we living in the Jubilee that Jesus has given for us? I hope you enjoy the reading today. God bless you.